Man, and I use the term loosely. An assortment, 4 jacked up oil pumps, all getting repaired in this video. So now my problem is I've got to find a suitable pump body to continue experimenting with. Here's a candidate. This happens to be an entire pump. All the gears, the cover, all of this has all been, a complete running assembly. It's all matched. It's all been run together. I really don't want to screw with this one. This one here has a really unusual problem. I rebuilt an engine for a guy, and I do that thing where I spin the connecting rods over and I have the pump primed and I wait for oil to come up by the rocker box supply lines. Anyway, this pump was in that engine and I was doing that thing to it and I was watching for oil to come up by the rocker arm supply lines, and it wouldn't come out, it wouldn't come out, it wouldn't come out. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed oil coming out of the return line. And I thought, how the hell could oil be coming out of the return line before it's even getting to the passageways in the crankcase? So I took the oil pump apart again, and see this hole right here? Let me zoom in on that for you. See this hole right here? See this little divot on the side of the pump body right here? And see this hole. This hole's supposed to be here. This hole's not supposed to be here. This, I do believe, was misdrilled from the factory. This particular engine, when I took it out of the guy's bike to rebuild it, he had a gauge and a pressure switch plumbed into the fitting over here. And apparently this had been an issue since the day the bike was built. And I assume that it must have been to a Harley dealer. You know, this is a 74 or 73, something like that, this particular bike. And nobody figured it out until me a couple of years ago. So anyway, this pump is not suitable to use. Then there is this pump right here, and it's got its issues. Somebody had, well, the issue is this is cracked all in through here. So somebody had welded the crack, which is fine. When they welded the crack, it collapsed the passageway in here. When it collapsed the passageway, oil couldn't get to the sending unit. So they drilled it through. When they drilled it through, they went too far and they poked a hole in here. So this pump is really not suitable. This pump has the thread stripped out, so it's really not suitable. And that leaves me with this pump. It doesn't, this is one of the ones that feeds through the crankcase and not through the external fitting. But otherwise this one is good. From what I could see of the seat down in here, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to have to drill and tap this for the external fitting. So we're going to take this out on the milling machine and we're going to drill down through here, in through here at an angle and straight down through the end over here so I could thread this for the pipe thread fitting that goes in there. I've had this pump laying around. I think earlier in one of the videos I said a couple of years. I got to thinking about it. It's probably more like 5 or 7. I've had it laying around for quite a while. You know, this hole over here really is not an easy thing to fix. you know, hard to get down in the corner to weld. If I welded it, there would be a gob of weld sticking up. I'd have to machine off. Epoxy, I don't know, JB Weld. I've never been fond of using JB Weld anywhere on an engine, let alone inside an oil pump. I've got that Miracle brazing rod. You heat that up, it'll melt in there. The only trouble is it's going to run out the bottom as fast as you pour it in the top. This thing has kind of been a monument to crappy AMF quality control. There's a little divot over here where they got off target with the drill. I'm thinking somebody must have had it in the jig wrong. So they drilled through here. They figured out they fucked it up. Well, and they even started drilling over here. So which was the first fuck up? They fucked it up over here. They didn't drill very deep over here, just not even a 16th of an inch probably. Then they fucked it up over here. And then the third time, they managed to get the hole in the right spot. And I've been fucking with a lot of oil pumps in the last few days. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I've been dicking with. And why am I doing this, you may ask? And I'll tell you why. Because the last time I tried to buy one of these repop pumps off of V-Twin, they were out of stock. And the gal I talked to over there said they might be out of stock for 6 months, maybe longer. They really didn't know when or if they were actually going to get any. So all of a sudden, these crappy ass oil pumps I got laying around, they might be called upon someday. So I started looking into, I had always intended to do the rethreading thing, in here. I had that other one with a crack and welded and the hole in the wrong spot over here, and I always wanted to fix that one. I got one going over here. I got the other one that's still full of ATF being tested. That one's probably usable. Of course, then there was that one I junked out. That one's not going to be usable anymore. But anyway, it's getting hard to get these things, and I think I've decided what I'm going to do with this. I just drilled this hole out a little bit bigger. It was about a 16th. It's now 3/32. I got a piece of 3/32 welding rod right here. The hole that I drilled does not go all the way through into this passageway in here. It stops a little bit short. So there's now a little bit of a shoulder in the bottom of this hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a piece of this welding rod. I'm going to tap it into that hole with some badass green Loctite retaining compound. And then I'm going to get in there with the Dremel tool and hopefully just skim this off right here so that it's flush or very nearly flush. And I think I'm going to call it good to go. Now, when I put that in somebody's bike without their specific permission and what the history on it was, absolutely not. Would I put it in one of my bikes just to see if it worked? I might. The harder these things are to come by, the more likelihood it is that they will end up, that these old junkers might actually end up in an engine. This one, did work even with the hole. It sort of worked. A lot of oil just, went right from the pressure side back into the return side and never circulated in the motor. But like I said, this thing was 74, maybe 73, prime AMF stuff right there. And, it had been nursed along until, let's say 2017, maybe when I got it to rebuild. So it did sort of half-ass work. So I'm thinking it'll kind of half-ass work with a piece of welding rod cut off in the hole over here. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. Alright, here's the piece of 3/16 aluminum welding rod. There's a drop of Loctite 620 retaining compound. Sounds like it bottomed out. So now all I got to do is cut that off flush with the bottom of the hole. Much easier said than done, I'm sure. Alright, I got a new diamond cutoff wheel and a Dremel tool. Let's see if I could do this without fucking it up. Well, touched it over there a little bit. Got a little trimming to do. I think it might be okay. Alright, I know there was a hole right here. I can see no trace of it whatsoever. Boy, I'm really happy with that. So, this thing's been a paperweight for the last 5-7 years, who knows. This is now something that I would probably use if I needed to in one of my motors. Very happy with that. You know, that's a technique I'll probably never have to use again, but it's kind of nice to know that I can if I needed to. I had a gear in here, and it's reasonably snug. I'm happy with it. I think this is going to work out just fine. Anyway, I've got this one here, and I doubt you'll be able to see it, but I'll try to show you anyway. There's a crack right in through here, and it coincides with this oil passageway right here. This particular one also was cracked across the top here, and it looks like somebody welded it in, and they did. I just got done grinding the weld down, and I wanted to do that to see if there was any evidence that the crack went through. There isn't, so this looks solid. When they welded it, it of course collapsed this passageway. They tried to open a passageway up by drilling through it, and they succeeded. The problem being they drilled just a little bit too far, and the drill bit poked through into one of the gear cavities. So you're going to lose, let's see, this is on the scavenge side. Okay, so pressure oil is going to bleed directly into the scavenge side. Not a good thing. I'm going to try to fix this. I've got another one over here that I'm going to try to fix too. This particular one has the last ½ inch of threads pulled out of it. And that was done, I'm sure, when somebody was trying to tighten this up. God only knows why Harley used this arrangement, but you know, this is a 1-inch nut, and you put a 1-inch wrench on this thing, and it's going to destroy the threads on this aluminum in no short order. But anyway, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take both of these. I'm going to take both of these. I'm going to run a 1/2 inch drill down in here, about 1 inch, 1.25 inches. That will leave a step from the 1/2 inch diameter to the smaller diameter of the threads remaining in the bottom of this thing. And you only need threads at the top, 1/2, 5/8 of an inch or thereabouts. That will leave a step. And up against that step, I'm going to shove in an aluminum plug, 1/2 inch diameter, about 1/4 inch thick. Then I'm going to stand these both up on their end, and I'm going to fill them with some of this aluminum soldering rod. I've used this upon very rare occasion, and for something like this, I think it'll work good. You really can't weld in here. How do you get a torch in there? You don't want to fill the whole thing up because there's passageways that need to stay open. So you need only to fill up, the last 3/4 of an inch and re-tap it. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. So I've been prepping these two out. I'm going to take them both out to the milling machine, and I'm going to make my 1/2 inch hole. And I'm doing that because the rod needs clean bare aluminum to stick to it, and this dirty, greasy, and no matter what I do, there's going to be grease and crud down in the bottom of the threads that are left. So I need to get that, run a drill bit through there just to clean this all out and get a clean, bright metal. This thing, what I'm going to do about this, I'm going to put a slug, actually a piece of 4130 steel tube, thick wall, in here that fits snugly. I'm going to stand it up on end, and I'm probably just going to cut off, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch of this rod, and I'm going to shove it down in that hole. And I'm going to heat it up, and when it melts out of here, I'll know that I've got a fusion up to this hole. I'm putting the steel plug in here because this stuff, the real disadvantage of this is when you get it hot enough to fuse the metal, it runs like water. And if I just melt this in here, it's just going to run out of this hole and make a big scabby mess all over the inside of this gear cavity. So I need to block it off in a way that won't hurt the parent metal. Anyway, that's what we're going to try to do. That's coming up. I need to wrap up some of the soil pump stuff. I got engines and bikes to work on. These are two of the pumps that were pump bodies that were jacked up. This one had the threads pulled out of the last 1/2 inch like they usually do. This one here had been previously welded and cracked through this passageway, okay? I drilled down into them about 1 inch with a 1/2 inch drill to clean all the oil and crud out, clean the old threads off, and generally clean out the holes, okay? I put a 1/2 inch diameter aluminum plug about 3/8 of an inch tall jammed down into the bottom of this hole. And I did that because I used aluminum rod over here to fill the holes up so that I could rethread them. I did this because you really can't weld at the bottom of a hole. There's just not a good way to get to the bottom of a hole to weld, so I just filled both of the holes up with new metal. One of the problems you run into with this rod, this is a good rod for filling holes, and in some situations you might actually be able to effect a good repair with it. And you do need MAP gas. Propane just does not get the part hot enough to flow the rod. But one of the problems you run into is the rod flows so well for example, here is a gob of aluminum that is coming out of this little tiny hole over here. And this is the one where they had drilled too far through and were into the cavities where the gear rotates. So I made a steel plug and shoved it in there because I knew it was going to flow like that. And I blocked it off so that I have a flush. You know, it melted down to here, then it stopped. And actually the way I did this, I think, is kind of clever. I drilled the hole out a little bit to once again clean it up, get all the oil and everything off of it. And I just put some of the rod, I put a piece of rod in there and heated it up in this area until it started flowing out. And I know now that I've got a little plug in there, it should be fused pretty well. But anyway, that's how I did this. So now they're sitting here, and I've got to get new threads in it. Now, the threads that go in here have to be absolutely perpendicular to the sealing surface, or when you screw the ascending unit plug in there, if it's not aligned with the base, you know, it won't seal. It'll be cattywampus on there. So in order to accomplish that, I made a fixture. And the fixture consists of a steel plate with a couple of holes in it. And you bolt the plate to the pump, or you bolt the pump to the plate, however you want to look at it. And the bolt holes in the pump are oriented so that this is parallel to the bottom and top of the plate. Okay, it's designed to fit in the mill vise like this. Now, previously I had bolted this part to my fixture plate, and I drilled this hole so that it aligns with the center of the relief valve orifice down here. So I'm going to mill this off, get it flat, mill both of them off, get it flat. I'm going to put my plate, I'm going to screw it to the other part of the fixture, manipulate X and Y to get the hole lined up with the center of the drill. Then I'll be able to drill down through there, you know, pilot drill it first, drill it to size, and then tap it. Alright, first one's clamped up in the mill. We're going to fire the mill up, touch off on this thing, back off, and I don't know, take maybe 30 or 40 thou to, you know, skim the bubble, the aluma alloy left sticking up above the hole. Okay, that's all that needs. I've bolted the top plate of the fixture in place. I've manipulated the X and the Y so that the, in this case, end mill passes through the hole without rubbing on the sides. I'm using an end mill instead of a drill because a drill tends to wander a little bit, and I want to keep the hole as close to centered as I can. So let's drill this out and see what happens. Okay, I really don't need this in position anymore, so we're going to pull it out of the way. And I'm going to go all the way until this breaks through. Yeah, kind of interesting. This filler rod actually is a little harder and machines nicer than the aluminum does. And as soon as I broke through to that plug that was down in the bottom, it started clogging up the flutes. I marked the depth of cut with some tape because I did not want to get anywhere near that check ball seat area. So this is a safe distance to stop, and I could thread it down to here, and that'll give me plenty of threads. What makes this whole operation possible, of course, is having a right tap. And this is one of them Harley things where they used a very goofy thread. This thing is, oh hell, I can't even read it. It is 15/32 by 24. And I happen to find a company that sells these taps. And a person might ask, why don't you just use a Healy coil? They don't make Healy coils that size. Okay, this is the pump body that was cracked and had the passageway to the oil pressure switch fitting blocked when the weld collapsed into the hole. Of course, I blocked it again when I filled the whole thing up with the alumalloy. So now I've got to go back in there and open that passageway up. I'm going to be careful not to drill into the gear cavity though. So anyway, that's one more step done on this one. Alright, once again I'm working on the pump body that had the crack in the weld in it and the passageway to the pressure sender fitting was clogged up. So I've got to open up that little tiny hole that connects it to the output of the pump. I could still see the faint little dot where the hole used to be before the alumalloy filled it and flowed out. So I'm using that as a guide, and I'm drilling back through there to open up that interconnect again. Upon occasion, depending on how your particular bike is plumbed, you might prefer to have an oil line that feeds into the pump housing instead of to the top of the crankcase. You could convert one to the other so that it could be used in either situation. If you're not using the external fitting on the pump, you could put a plug in it and use the fitting on top of the crankcase. So a pump that's set up this way could be used either way. Preferably, you need an extra pump body to get your drill alignment set up in a milling machine. Although a guy might be able to eyeball this in just a regular drill press if you're careful. I used the fixture I made for repairing the threads on the other end to secure this thing in a mill vise. Essentially, all you got to do is manipulate the X and the Y to get it centered under the drill. Once I get it centered, I remove it from the fixture. Once it's out of the fixture, I bolt the one I want to convert into the fixture, and I drill it to whatever depth it needs to be with the tap drill size for 1/8 inch NPT. That's all there is to it. Alright, the sample pump has been removed, and I'm now bolting in to my fixture the pump I want to modify. Since it's being bolted into the same location and I haven't moved the mill table, When I drill this, it's going to have a hole exactly in the same relative position as a pump that had the hole drilled from the factory. All right, that should be good. Let's drill the top ½ inch or so for the proper drill size for 1/8 inch NPT. But I tell you, that clean living has done me well. I just matched up the drill bits to the size hole I needed on the original, and it turns out that I ended up with 21/64, which is the size you need for 1/8 inch NPT. I'm out in the dirty shop. I'm here to tell you it's cold. Going to, well, I've got the sample pump, so to speak, chucked up on the same fixture I used for drilling the supply hole in, and I got it chucked up in an angle drill, and I'm just going to adjust the vertical to 0 in both directions. Alright, that's good. Let's see how we are the other way. Alright, I've manipulated the X and the Y, and I've got the end mill lined up directly over the passageway I need to drill on the sample. So let's unbolt this one. Let me tighten the end mill up first. There we go. Let's unbolt this one. And let's bolt this one up. Alright, I think I'm going to be able to feel it break through to this other passageway, so I may regret it, but I'm not going to mark the depth anywhere. There it goes, it just broke through. And I think I'm going to go in with a drill bit, a little bit bigger drill bit right now. We're going to call that good to go. Let's take it inside where it's warm and check it out. I turned a pump that had no external inlet fitting into one that takes an external inlet fitting. I did use a milling machine. You know, with a steady hand, you could probably do it with a drill or a drill press. Notice that the hole is not centered in the boss. This is a modified one. but notice on a factory one, the hole is not centered on the boss either. So, you know, you got to be a little careful, but it'll work. All right, so here we are, several days of jacking around. All these pumps were destined for the scrap heap. Well, one wasn't, but they were destined for the scrap heap quite possibly. Several different repairs done. These are probably all good enough to use, although one might be a little marginal. This one here, originally, nothing wrong with it. All I did to this one was convert it so that it could feed from the bottom as well as top of the crankcase. This one here had a defect from Harley from the day of manufacture. They had drilled an extraneous hole connecting the suction side of the pump to the pressure side of the pump. This one here had split and cracked along here, and the previous attempted weld repair collapsed and blocked the passageway to the fitting for the sending unit. And this one here, the threads were just wiped clean out of the end of this. All in all, fairly successful. All of these procedures, I kind of prototyped on these pumps. But anyway, if you got a pump, don't be quick to throw it away. There's a lot that can be done to save these things. Anyway, for now, I am out of here. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you next time.